want to thank all of you for joining us here today. We've just returned from 3 days on the Texas border. A group of Tennessee sheriffs and mayors joined me. That included Putnam County Sheriff Eddie Ferris, Franklin County Sheriff Tim Fuller, Dyer County Sheriff Jeff Box, Montgomery County Sheriff John Fusen, Anderson County Mayor Terry Frank, Cotton County Mayor Crystal Ottinger, Morgan County Sheriff Wayne Potter, and Anderson County Sheriff Russell Barker. I want to thank all of you all for being here with me today, follow up on our trip. I'm certain that the public here in Tennessee is going to be very interested to hear about our trip. But first, let me talk to you about the reason for our trip. For the past 15 months, every time I come home to Tennessee, I hear from my friends in law enforcement, I hear from local leaders about the carnage that's happening right here in Tennessee. The deaths from overdose from fentanyl that is occurring here. The crime, the sex trafficking. Something's got to be done about this. We've been talking about it happening right here in the middle part of America. We wanted to take our voices to the border, where the problem is more immediate, but that's absolutely the precipitant of what we've seen happening here and across the nation. In fact, we had 100,000 deaths in America last year due to overdoses from drugs, most of it fentanyl. Fentanyl, whose precursors are coming from China, shipped to Mexico, and coming across our porous southern border, killing kids right here in America. In fact, our mayors will talk about it a little bit more in a few minutes, but the overdose deaths as they've seen in their county are primarily due to fentanyl. Again, the Chinese Communist Party's fingerprints are on every one of these deaths. These deaths are happening here in Tennessee, though, because of what's happening at our southern border. And over the past 3 days, we spent time with Border Patrol agents and watched what they're encountering. They're literally overwhelmed with what's happening there. They have capacity to process perhaps 5,000 people. They're now processing 7,000 to 8,000 people. When President Biden lifts Title 42 on the 23rd of May, they're going to be overwhelmed with perhaps 17,000, 18,000 people a day. What's happening is our Border Patrol agents are completely consumed with processing paperwork for those people who come across the border and turn themselves in. What that does is opens a hole for the drug cartels to ship more fentanyl, more high-value aliens, as they call them. These are people on terrorist watch list. They're sending people across that border. We have no idea who they are. In fact, we've apprehended 157 different nationalities at our southern border just this past year. There are only 195 countries recognized by the United Nations. This is a national security disaster of epic proportions, and the Biden administration will do nothing about it. In fact, they're making it worse. What the Biden administration wants to do is just process more people who are coming here illegally. They want to create more incentive for illegal immigration into America. And in doing so, they're essentially partnering with the drug cartels and the Chinese Communist Party, who are profiting immensely from this. I served in the previous administration. I was on the phone with the senior White House staff the night that President Xi and President Trump met at the G20 in Buenos Aires. President Trump was very direct with President Xi. He told President Xi to stop sending fentanyl to America. President Xi agreed to that term, but he never agreed to stop sending it to Mexico. Now that President Biden has come into office and collapsed the southern border, what he's done is open the floodgates for more illicit drugs and fentanyl to come into America and kill our kids. You know, I looked at the news yesterday. Tragic news about what's happening in Ukraine. 300 bodies were found in a mass grave near Kiev. Everyone around the world is disturbed by this. But if you think about the number of deaths that we have here in America, that's one night of overdoses here in America, thanks to the border calamity that President Biden has created. Yet no one is talking about that. These are our kids that are being killed. This is a war that's being waged on the youth of America by the Chinese Communist Party working in concert with the drug cartels in Mexico. And you know who's been the biggest player in this game? Our President, Joe Biden. In fact, one of the Border Patrol agents told me this. He said the Chinese Communist Party and the Mexican drug cartels, these billion-dollar enterprises, are making billions off of the drug trade that's been facilitated over these past 14 or 15 months. He said their employee of the year should be President Joe Biden. I think we will have an opportunity now to hear from some of our sheriffs and mayors to get their perspective of what they saw. But thank you for being with us here today. Eddie, would you like to
Yes, sir.
comment first?
So one may ask why Tennessee sheriffs are going to the border, southwest border in Texas, and how it affects Tennessee and specifically Putnam County. Last year alone, over 19,000 criminals were apprehended at the border, and we know that 14,000 or so was released back into the United States. Just about every drug that comes across the southern border, illegal drug, there's a certain percent of that has fentanyl in it. We know those stats from our TBI state crime lab. So the death rate in Putnam County and in Tennessee is no different than it's across the country. It has doubled the last 12 months. So we're concerned. We have to try to get a handle on this and do something with it. Thank you so much, Senator, for the trip.
Thank you, Sheriff. Mayor?
I really appreciate the Senator letting us go see firsthand what policy at the federal level means to us locally. So in 2019, Anderson County had turned to court and our fatal overdose rates were going down. In 2019, fentanyl deaths were 11 fatal overdose. In 2021, 59. Meth, 10 in 2019. In 2021, 44. And that is a direct relationship with the policy at the border. And so not only is it about drugs coming in and empowering the cartels for this drug trade, but it's also one of the things we heard directly, boots on the ground, whether it was the state police or the border patrol. No one gets across the border unless they pay the cartels. And so we're looking at it as an open border situation where there's an argument about compassion for the people. How compassionate is it that we're charging, we're empowering and enriching the cartels for someone to get to this country? So it was enlightening, really informative, talking to some folks there at Dr. Vickers who was handling both sides of the equation with both getting water to people that were crossing, but then also showing us pictures of the tattoos of the cartels of the members that they captured. Very impactful.
Can we get your name and your
Terry Frank, Anderson County Mayor.
I'm Sheriff Wayne Potter, Morgan County, Tennessee. First off, I want to thank Senator Hagerty for making me a part of this delegation. Him and I were standing at the wall Friday evening, a section of the wall that's incomplete, and all I could think about was my citizens back home in Morgan County. There's around 22,000 citizens here in Morgan County, and I know most of them. One of the hardest things that a small town sheriff can do is have to go make a death notification to a family member that one of their loved ones has lost their battle with addiction. With that being said, I want to commend Senator Hagerty for what he's done, and I want to ask the Congress to get behind him and support him on this. At the end of the day, we're fighting a war. There's a storm of drugs coming on through our southern borders, and small town USA is in the direct line of this storm.
I'm Russell Barker, the sheriff in Anderson County. We're familiar with fentanyl, we're familiar with the drug trade and how it impacts our communities. And as Mayor Frank said, we're definitely seeing a direct correlation with what's happening at the border and a rise in our fatal overdoses because of fentanyl. But the most eye-opening thing for me was it is so much worse than what we're being told. The simple fact is this. The first night that we went on one of our tours of the wall, there was a Border Patrol agent that his sole job was to sit there with his lights on so that people crossing could find him and they could turn themselves in. Of the group that they had there, approximately 15, they represented 3 different countries. And as we're leaving, going to the next site, we passed probably 6 to 8 others, and as they engaged them, because they're not hiding, they're walking right down the road towards us, they represented Cuba, a 4th country. So in our very first interaction with anybody who had turned themselves in, 4 separate countries, to me, it opened my eyes up that it is truly not just an issue with human trafficking, not just an issue with our drugs, but it's a national security issue. because when the Border Patrol told us that 156 different nationalities were represented, it's horrifying what could be coming across our border. And as simple as I can put it, I know if we had a neighbor who was cutting our fences or tearing our fences down to gain access to our property, we wouldn't tolerate it. And I don't know why we would as a nation, why we would allow that to happen. And I would also like to thank Senator Hagerty for the opportunity to be down there. Thank you.
I'm Crystal Edinger, Mayor in Cott County, and I also want to thank the Senator for the opportunity to join them on that trip. My story is no different than the other stories up here. We're a distressed county across the state, so the impact that the drugs that are coming into Cott County, it has a great impact on our county economically. With deaths, we had 27 overdoses last year, fatal overdoses, and 23 of those were fentanyl. And when I talked to a DEA agent in Cott County, he said that those can be traced back to 2 locations, and one of them was McAllen, one of the areas that we went to. And I didn't understand, I had some misconceptions about what was happening on the border, and one of the most eye-opening things that I saw was something that Sheriff Barker had said. We were in the van, and some of the folks just walked up to the Border Patrol agents, and instead of the agents being able to stop the drugs on the border, and if you stop them in Texas, they're less likely to make their way up to Tennessee. But they're unable to do that because instead of being able to go to the border and protect that border from the drugs coming in, they're essentially being what's the equivalent of a front desk clerk. People are coming in, they're checking in, they're getting processed, but they're taking a lot of time with them to get them medical care, to get them food, to get them everything that they need. And because they even told the Border Patrol agent where they wanted to go. So, they're reservationists, they're front desk clerks, and they can't protect the border if the influx of people is allowed to continue to come in. And the policy's got to change in order for that to happen.
I'm Sheriff Tim Fuller from Franklin County, Tennessee. This trip was very eye-opening to all of us. I want to commend Senator Haggard for offering us this opportunity. The fentanyl deaths that we have in our particular county have risen greatly. And it's not just that. We met on this trip, we saw the issue there on the border. We met with sheriffs, we met with Highway Patrol, we met with DEA. They gave us what they are experiencing. Even landowners that owns farms and ranches there on the border and what they're experiencing. And if you can imagine as a resident of the state of Tennessee and you've got people constantly cutting your fence, coming across your property, destructing things in the process, that is just one part of this equation. And the floodgates are open. These guys are literally go from 1,000 people when President Trump was in office per day to 8,000 a day. Can you imagine 50 agents trying to process 8,000 people in a day's time? They don't have time to work the border. They're as the mayor said, busy processing people. So there's got to be a steadfast solution to this, and I will take this any day of the week. I challenge our Congress and our president to take a step forward and put a stop to it as well as we can. Thank you.
Sure.
My name's John Fuson. I'm the sheriff up in Montgomery County, and just like you just heard everybody here talk about the problems in our communities, far away from the border. I know that as the sheriff of a large county and growing county, it's my job, and just as in any state, to create policies and strategies to kind of help us with our problem. And I think going to the border with this delegation and the senator, You know, we see on the news, it opens up our eyes a little bit there, but it doesn't give it any justice until you go down and see it firsthand. And you look at the root cause of the major problem that we're having here in Tennessee. We may see that on the news and think it's a Texas problem. Well, if you go down there and look and see it yourself and see what's happening in communities further inland in our country, you know that the roots of this problem go all the way down and touch the borders, not only in Texas, primarily in Texas is where a lot of this comes through Arizona and New Mexico as well. It's a huge problem, and again, setting the policy is what's going to stop this. When we talk to those Border Patrol agents, one of the big takeaways that I had is they said they don't want money, they don't need money, they don't need more manpower, they just need policy. So I think if you put that in perspective, something as simple as a stroke of a pen from the President of the United States that could stop the problems that we're having in our country. And you know, I think about this as well. While we're busy processing these folks coming in that are turning themselves in, these cartels know that. That's going to occupy our Border Patrol. In the meantime, you've got backpacks full of this fentanyl coming in another part of the border while they're preoccupied processing. It's just lunacy. I mean, I look at it from our perspective. If we had a problem like that, you know, it would be just as easy to use our pen to change it. And it's that simple. From the time the administration changed, you've seen how important that policy and how impactful that policy change was. So the only thing I can say is, wow, just something as simple as a stroke of a pen can fix this and not create the problem and not create the deaths that we're seeing. But I applaud Senator Hagerty for what he's doing, this delegation for seeing that firsthand, and you know, I can't wait to you know, make even more noise about this in my county.
Well,
so thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. And the sad thing is this. President Trump figured this problem out. President Trump figured out how to stop the incentive that was creating this massive wave of immigration, illegal immigration coming into America. He put in place something called the Migrant Protection Protocol, the so-called stay in Mexico policy. If a person wants to apply for asylum, they have to do it from Mexico. They can't come here and be released in the process. The Border Patrol agents told all of us that that policy change dramatically crushed the flow of immigration, illegal immigration coming across the border. Within 2 weeks, they saw it cut down to a trickle. And when Joe Biden came into an office, they saw a tidal wave mount because Biden promised them that he'd allow this to happen. The coyotes market this to the most vulnerable people south of the border. They take their life savings. They subject these people to horrors that I don't want to describe on a televised broadcast. But we saw the people that had suffered through this. They traverse for months sometimes to make it on a very dangerous journey up to this border, to then risk their lives to get across the Rio Grande River. Some of them are used as decoys, as bait, to distract the Border Patrol. We've even seen situations where babies were left alongside the road just so the Border Patrol could be preoccupied so that the cartels could get along with their drug running. The entire Mexico side of the Rio Grande River is now controlled by cartels. It's a war zone there. We were in Laredo, Texas yesterday. Those cartels have actually moved into Laredo with their safe houses, with their intimidation in the neighborhoods. This problem has crept into America right there on the southern border, but it's also crept into each of our communities, and that's why our sheriffs and our mayor's voice is so important, because they're killing kids right here in Tennessee. This illegal fentanyl, this illegal methamphetamine that's coming here, again, the direct byproduct of a failed policy by the Biden administration.
Wonderful, we can take some questions.
I see you guys pointing the finger a lot, but I don't see anybody have any solutions. Y'all, nobody mentioned any solutions, what we should do or anything. And I know it's easy to blame the Biden administration, but what are you guys gonna do? That's your job too, and all the senators, all the congressmen. What is your plan? Have you talked to President Biden? Have you asked him, can we do this, can we do that? I mean, we've been
Certainly.
talking about this since the 80s. Since Reagan was in office, and nobody's done anything. It's still flooding in, and it will once you're gone, I'm gone, it'll still be coming in. So what can we do?
Shortly after President Biden took office, I wrote him and warned him not to drop the migrant protection protocols. It was very hard fought to get those agreements put in place, but we did. And that brought the illegal immigration down to a trickle, the lowest that we've seen in 2020. But Biden came in, and despite my urging, I mean, I wrote him to explain this is what was going to happen. He did it anyway, and that's precisely what happened. Just last week, I introduced new legislation to take Title 42. This is the public health reason that they're able to turn people away at the border right now. It's the only tool the Border Patrol has left. I introduced legislation to expand that, to include drug smuggling, because drug smuggling is a health crisis right here in Tennessee. Again, I've got to have Democrats' support to get this through. Democrats control the House, the Senate, and the White House right now. That's how they're able to achieve this. Why are they doing it? People ask, why are the Democrats supporting this? This is a tragedy. It's an economic tragedy. It's a public health tragedy. It's killing Americans. Why are they supporting this? Well, Democrat donors, big corporations that like cheap labor, I presume they benefit from this. But what's worse is Democrat politicians benefit too. They create sanctuary cities in states where Democrats control the legislature. They're trying to attract more people, illegal people, into those cities because their goal now is the census count. Their goal is to shift the power in Congress, the number of seats in these states, and ultimately the Electoral College. It's perverse, it's sick, and they're willing to force hundreds of thousands of deaths upon America just to accomplish their political goal. They're willing to subject us to a national security crisis beyond proportion to accomplish this goal.
You can't believe that Democrats would want more people to die just so they can get voted. You really believe that?
If they would wake up and look at the evidence, it's
You
true.
believe that? I mean, it's getting to a point where it's Democrat against Republican. He says this, I'm going to say no, I'm going to say yes. Do you think that maybe what the big problem is?
There's no Democrat that will even go to the border. They want this to go away. President Biden hasn't gone to the border. Kamala Harris was, 1,200 miles from where we were, the hot spot. They need to step down there and see what's happening, to see what we saw, to see the crush of humanity that's going on down there. They need to talk to the same sheriffs that are here today to understand the deaths that are happening in our communities. They need to go with the sheriff to explain to a mother or to a grandmother that their son or grandson isn't coming home tonight because of an overdose from fentanyl. Maybe that would wake them up. But right now, this political goal is causing mayhem across America.
Senator, just to be clear, the immigration problem has been an issue. So it will require legislation, or else the next president can come in and do the same thing with a stroke of a pen. How can you get broad bipartisan support to fix immigration issues that Democrats and Republicans agree on some level issues need to be fixed, and specifically those solutions?
Yeah, well, the very first step is to secure our southern border. That's got to happen. In fact, the Congress did agree to do this. We both authorized and appropriated the funds to complete the border wall. We're in Laredo, Texas. There's a massive issue there. There is zero border wall there. The funds were appropriated, yet no wall was built. What's happened is this administration has illegally impounded the funds. I wrote them immediately. I've asked the GAO to step in. This is a violation of the Impoundment Act, what this administration is doing. And what we're getting is a lot of bureaucratic red tape coming back. But I'm going to keep pushing. And once the Republicans control the Congress again, we're going to be pushing very, very hard. Because again, these funds have been authorized and appropriated to build the wall and secure the border. What they've been doing is paying liquidated damages, and the Biden administration told the contractors to walk away. That's step one of the process. But we can't get this going until we get our border secure.
And on fentanyl, this issue didn't just arise in the last year or the last 2 years. A report by the state of Tennessee saw fentanyl dramatically rising since 2016 and has exacerbated year over year. There's not been a solution to this since 2016, so why all of a sudden is this a bigger issue? Or is this an issue that you see has dramatically superseded those past 4 years of year after year growth?
I think that our sheriffs and mayors can talk to the extent of the fentanyl dramatically increasing since this border.
Yeah, I beg to differ on your 2016.
It's coming from the state of Tennessee, by the way.
Yeah, and so is my stats, the TBI crime lab. The last couple of years, everything has doubled. It has no way since 2016. The methamphetamine, the marijuana, heroin, anything's coming across. Most of it's coming across southern borders. Not just the southern border, but most of it. And what's coming across, there's a certain percent of fentanyl in all of that. Precursors are coming in from China. It's put together in Mexico, and they're even sending tech labs down to Mexico in order to put that in and make that a compound and a drug, an illegal drug, and send it over. So the death rates and overdose proved in the last 2 years, it's just exploded. So that's what the concern is on the sheriff's part.
Also, I'd like to say that one of the issues that we see is in the beginning when we first started encountering fentanyl, we were seeing it was being used to cut heroin, and for my county, that happened as we closed in on the opioids and the pill mills, and once that shut down is when heroin showed up, and there shortly after we saw fentanyl being used to cut heroin. But now the problem is we're seeing fentanyl in literally everything, whether it be marijuana, methamphetamine, name the drug, and that's what we're seeing. And the scary part also is this: we are running across pill stamps where it's 100% fentanyl, but it may appear to be, a Roxy 30. So the part of the issue is when it comes to teenagers, kids, and honestly, just even adults that may not be knowing, there's a certain degree of where they believe erroneously that it's safe because it's a manufactured drug. Well, if it's 100% fentanyl or any kind of purity to it, and it's stamped, they feel like it therefore is safe when it's actually not. They don't know what they're taking.
I just want to piggyback off that. Like I said, being a small town sheriff, I deal with these people on a daily basis. I'm one of them that's actually given the Narcan on the side of the road when they're gone. No one intentionally wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to commit suicide today. They're being poisoned, and that's reality. Now, I spoke to several of the agents down there, and I had none of them, not one single one of them. Every one of them said, Donald Trump didn't just think of this while he's laying in the bed. He came down here. He talked to us. He got our personal opinions, and that's why they're supportive of trying to get the help. Now, I can't speak if this other administration's been down there or not, but I can tell you what they told me personally. He was there. He came down there, he listened to what we had to say, and he acted on it.
That's policy from behind the desk, what I was talking about a while ago. As people that are responsible for the job that we have to do, we have a crisis, we try to find the root cause of that. We write policy, we give directives to kind of curtail that. And what you're saying a while ago, it's working. He's talking to the boots on the ground. It's working. And then all of a sudden, very next day, comes into office, he wipes it away. I think it's because whatever Donald Trump did or didn't do, has got to be personal to them. So they want to wipe that away. But not once have they been down there to even talk to the Border Patrol. That's some of the first things that you do as an administrator if you've got a problem or a crisis. You go and talk to the boots on the ground and ask them what's working. How many people said that that his policies wasn't working, and how many said that it would just be a policy change? It would make a dramatic difference in what's coming in. And to your point, talking about fentanyl, fentanyl was here before. Inside the country, the United States controlled that. When these drug dealers wasn't getting what they needed, they got it from other sources. China seen that through Mexico, through our borders. It's weak. Got a new president, we knew it was going to be weaker, and that's exactly what happened. So if you look at those numbers and you talk to the men and women that work down there, politics or no politics, Republican, Democrat, all of them say the same thing. They know what works because they're right there on the front line and they see it, and they see how simple that policy change was when the administration's change has affected what's coming into this country. To me, I said lunacy a while ago, it's idiocy. Downright idiocy.
And I may add, when we went down there, we didn't go down there to be political. We didn't go down there to make it a Republican-Democrat thing. Those kind of questions was never asked to the
That's
Border
right.
Patrol agents or the Texas Department of Safety. Those questions wasn't asked. We didn't say, try to make it a administration thing. We just listened, and that's what they told us about policy. So we didn't talk about anything but policies. They said they did not need manpower, they didn't need more money, but their conclusion to all this was just better policies.
How does this affect your budgets, the mayors? How does this affect your budgets?
I can tell you on our budget, 85% of the people who are currently incarcerated in our jail has some type of drug-related charge. And when you break the budget down, if we didn't have this drug problem coming in, and you were able to break that down to just what is, something normal outside, it's the equivalent of a 31-cent tax increase that we could reduce just based on getting that drug problem under control. And in an economically distressed county, that's a lot. That's a lot.
How many drug rehabilitation facilities do you have?
We have none. No.
Supply and demand.
We have none that are the long-term treatment facilities. We can't afford one. The county isn't able to run, most counties don't run treatment facilities, and we have some close by, but again, that's a cost that we incur as a county that don't want to raise taxes on people who are already living below the poverty level. So if we take them to another county, we have transportation costs from our sheriff's department, we have to pull someone, it's almost like the border agents, we have to pull someone that could be doing something else in our community to go down there and sit with them. And you had asked a minute ago, did we believe that the Democratic Party was willing to let people die for political causes? I don't know if they're willing to do it, but they are doing it.
Senator Davidson, Shelby, Knox, some of the bigger counties, they're also seeing this problem.
Yeah.
Did you invite any of those people to come to the board with you?
The people that I invited, I worked with this team here to put together the people that have been talking with me the most about this. And I'm certain that sheriffs and mayors across the state are seeing this. There's this is being experienced everywhere. But these are the sheriffs and mayors that have really spoken with me the most about it over the past 14, 15 months. So I picked the ones to go with me that I knew were really, had been very engaged in this process.
And one of the things the Tennessee Sheriff's is currently working on as well is we're working with our lobbyists to try to get better mandatory minimums for sentencing here in Tennessee on things such as fentanyl. Part of fentanyl is Schedule 1, part of it's Schedule 2 drug. Heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, some of those have mandatory minimums, but we're looking to try to strengthen that as a Tennessee Sheriff's Association. So that's one way we're going to be able to help things at home here, we hope.
Just back to the question, does anybody do that drug rehabilitation centers? Anybody at all?
Are you talking about ones that are?
Like people that are drug addicts, and you know they're drug addicts. I mean, you all guys know the ones that are.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Are you talking about like within our facility, or are you talking about county ran?
I just remember a sheriff one time, when I was at a conference one time, he said, most of mine are drug addicts and schizophrenics in my jail. And he said, I'm not a rehabilitation center, and I'm not a doctor's office, but they're there. But nobody has any places like that.
We have plenty in Anderson County. I mean, we do have those, but there are none that are ran by county government. And we have programs, alternatives to incarceration at the Anderson County Jail, that we allow our inmates to apply for and be part of. Mayor, we also have drug court, correct? So we are definitely, in Anderson County, we're definitely being proactive, because we understand that it is addiction, right? And however, I don't think it's a single prong approach where we just rehabilitate the drug addict. Okay, I think we have to limit access to it. I think we have to make it, whether you're dealing or using, because honestly, the number that they throw around that your inmates 80% or some sort of drug-related issues. To me, I think it's much higher. I think almost everything, almost all of our crimes are driven by narcotics.
I think going down to treating a symptom, you're talking about a crisis down there that's creating this here for counties. I know that we see that, and we do the best we can with the resources we have to help address that, to include getting folks in some treatment. I think it's gone far enough. I think if you look right back to stopping it, turning that faucet off down there in Texas by policy is what we'll have to do. And I know we didn't say a whole lot about what Texas is doing. The Texas Department of Safety, their highway patrol, has got their Lone Star program down there that's doing awesome things to help stop that. That's what Texas is doing to take care of a federal responsibility that the federal government's failing to do. And I said they could do with a stroke of a pen. more states across this country are going to have to start stepping up and doing that if these policies don't change, or it's going to continue to grow and get worse. And we're going to see a whole lot more numbers than what we're seeing now. So that's my 2 cents on that.
One of the things you asked about the money, so in Anderson County back in 1987, the jail and the sheriff's budget combined was less than $1 million. Now it's 13+ million, and if you look at our other programs, whether it's senior programs or parks or transportation for the elderly, no program has grown to that extent, and that is a direct result. What are you supposed to do as a county when you have people out there committing crimes in order to get opiates or fentanyl or whatever? And so that's the challenge we have, and a lot of times you look at what's going on, especially in the state of Tennessee. I'm sure as the media you have covered county after county with the local battles over jail expansions. And is that really what we should be doing? If we can go down and we can help provide solutions and stop the flow, then we can break the cycle. And it's one of those, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Yes, we've got vulnerabilities as a culture to addiction, but then we have to do things to end the isolation that lends itself to addiction and have programs. But where do we get money for programs if we're solving the crisis, which is getting them off the street?
And I think we have time for 2 more questions if there's folks who have one.
Can we change gears real quick, talk about Ukraine real quick?
Sorry,
about
1
what-
second. If anyone, have you not had an opportunity? You're not doing it? Okay.
Yeah.
Did everyone have an opportunity? Yeah. Okay, then go ahead.
Quick
Sorry.
one on Ukraine.
About Ukraine and the war crimes there that would come out this morning about civilians being shot in the street and some with their hands tied behind their back and Putin isolating himself. Do you have any comment on that?
The situation in Ukraine is tragic. I think Tennesseans, people around the world, are concerned about what's happening there. The war crimes that are being perpetrated by Vladimir Putin are of grave concern. I think that he's going to pay the price for this. He's a pariah on the global stage. Putin will never find his way back into any type of normal diplomatic stature for his nation. At the same time, Putin is waging war on Russia as well. The sanctions that have been imposed are causing a lot of economic heartache in Russia, a lot of people leaving that country. But what has happened in Ukraine is a downright human tragedy. But again, the media is talking about this. The world's talking about this. No one's talking about the tragedy that's happening at our southern border. No one's talking about the 100,000 deaths that we lost, again, in America just this past year under Joe Biden's administration. So this is a tragedy of epic proportions happening right here in America that we should be addressing as well.
Senator, it was revealed that you were on some White House call logs attempting to try to reach the President of the United States, Trump, on January 6th. What would you go and say to the President if you were getting in contact with him on that day?
I didn't speak with the President on January the 6th.
You attempted to call him?
I placed a call, but I didn't get through to
What
him.
were you going to talk to him about?
I don't have any comment